The chamber is open and full of whispers.
The street is the kind of quiet that only exists at this hour, not peaceful, but emptied. Every curtain drawn, every car cold. The sodium streetlights throw orange pools across identical pavement squares, and Minerva McGonagall has been sitting on this garden wall for 11 hours and 22 minutes, watching a house she has already judged and sentenced in her own mind, and waiting for a man she has served for 30 years to arrive and tell her she is wrong. She is not wrong. She knows she is not wrong. She has known since approximately hour 2. He arrives the way he always arrives, not with drama, but with the particular inevitability of someone who has already decided the outcome. The deluminator clicks. The streetlights go out. Albus Dumbledore steps onto Private Drive in robes the color of a bruise and looks at her with those eyes that have always seen 17 things at once, and he says, "Minerva, I expected to find you here." "I expected to find myself here," she says. "I did not expect to still be here." She steps down from the wall. "The Dursleys," she says. And the name lands between them, like a stone dropped into still water. "Our family," Dumbledore says. "Are strangers." She does not raise her voice. She has never needed to. Harry Potter has never spent a single moment in that house, Albus. He is not returning to family. He is being delivered to people who will look at his face and see everything they have chosen to despise. Dumbledore is quiet. This is not the quiet of a man without an answer. This is the quiet of a man who has had the answer prepared for some time and is deciding whether to give it. "The Blood Wards," he begins. "Will keep Voldemort out." She says the name without flinching. She has always said the name. It has always been one of her quiet rebellions. They will not keep Vernon Dursley out. They were never designed to. Dumbledore reaches into his robes and produces the letter, already written, already sealed with his own wax, already addressed in his careful copperplate. He holds it for a moment. Minerva watches his face and sees something she has not seen there in years, not certainty, but the architecture of certainty, the way a man holds himself when he is trying to remember why he was sure. "Albus," she says. "Minerva, look at the boy." He looks. The basket sits at the foot of the doorstep exactly where Hagrid left it. The child inside is sleeping with the absolute commitment that only very young children achieve, every cell of him surrendered to it. He is wrapped in pale blue wool stitched through with silver moons, and the wool still carries the smell of a cottage in Godric's Hollow, of wood smoke and lily of the valley, of a woman who spent the last night of her life making sure her son would be warm. His scar, fresh and livid at his forehead, has not yet begun the long work of aching. He is 15 months old. He weighs precisely what 15 months of being deeply, completely loved will produce in a child. Dumbledore looks for a long time. He is about 130 years old. He has made so many calculations. He has weighed so many children against so many necessities, and he has told himself each time that the mathematics were correct, that the greater good was served, that the suffering was temporary. He sees Ariana in the sleeping face. He sees the long, cold corridor of every decision he has made in the name of outcomes he could not guarantee, and at the end of the corridor he sees a man sitting in a headmaster's chair with a phoenix on his shoulder, and the absolute knowledge that he has never, not once, been warm enough when it mattered most. He sees all of this in perhaps 4 seconds. Then he says, very quietly, "You've already made your decision. I made it at hour 2. I was waiting for you to make yours." The letter is still in his hand. He looks at it, this document of careful reasoning, this sealed logic of blood wards and ancient protections and the particular safety of the unremarkable. And then he does something she has never seen him do with a prepared argument. He puts it back in his pocket. "Undelivered, the castle," he says. "Has rooms that have not been children's rooms in some time," she says. "They will become children's rooms again. The ministry will have questions." She looks at him with the expression she reserves for statements that do not deserve full sentences. "Let them ask." With the particular care of someone lifting something irreplaceable, he bends and picks up the basket. Harry Potter does not wake. He makes a small sound that might be a dream about something warm, and settles deeper into the blue wool, one fist closed around a fold of the blanket as though holding on. Albus Dumbledore holds this child in something in his chest, some long calcified thing. Cracks along a fault line he didn't know was there. "We'll need a nursery," he says. "I," Minerva says, already turning, "have been mentally redecorating the tower annex since hour 3. She holds out her arm. He takes it. Privet Drive ceases to exist for them, one clean crack of displaced air, and the basket with the sleeping child between them is gone, leaving nothing on the doorstep but a folded letter with a headmaster's seal that no one will ever read, and the particular silence of a street that will never know how close it came to changing the world. The Hogwarts elves do not comment on the nursery that appears in the tower annex before dawn. They simply outfit it with the particular efficiency of those who understand that some things require no discussion. Minerva McGonagall sits in a chair beside a cot she transfigured from a bookshelf and watches Harry Potter sleep. The castle breathes around her. She has always felt it, this low particular hum beneath the stone, and tonight it breathes differently. As though it has been waiting. As though something has come home that it did not know, until this moment, that it was missing. At 5 minutes past 6 in the morning, Harry wakes. He looks at the ceiling. He looks at the firelight. He looks at Minerva McGonagall, who looks back at him with the expression of a woman who is committed to something enormous and is not afraid of it. He considers her for a moment with the grave, complete attention of the very young. Then he reaches out and grabs her finger. She sits there in the tower nursery with her finger enclosed in a 15-month-old's fist, and outside the window, above the forbidden forest, the sky begins to go from black to that specific purple that means dawn is a promise rather than a rumor. Fawkes, perched on the window ledge, sings one note. Just one. It is enough. Hogwarts has its first child. In the morning, Dumbledore writes to the Vizingamot. In the morning, Minerva writes a list that takes up 2 feet of parchment. In the morning, the castle begins the quiet, inexorable process of making room. In the morning, 48 hours from now, in a flat in Hackney, a 2-year-old girl will arrange every book within 30 feet into perfect, alphabetical order, and sit in the center of them with an expression of deep satisfaction, and a different letter will be written, and the list will grow by one name. But that is the morning. For now, a child sleeps in a castle that has decided to keep him, held by a woman who refused to leave, while an old man sits at his desk and writes in the Book of Governors, for the first time in its long, long history, the words, in loco parentis. 2 of them. By the time Hermione Granger arrives in the 2nd week of November, delivered by Dumbledore himself from a flat in Hackney, carried in one arm with her stuffed rabbit clutched in the other, the tower annex has already developed the specific atmosphere of a place organizing itself around a small person's gravity. Harry is sitting up by this point, which he has achieved through a combination of stubbornness and repeated failure that Minerva has been documenting in a small notebook, with the rigor she once applied to transfiguration theory. He cannot yet achieve forward motion, and this is a source of ongoing frustration that expresses itself in a low, concentrated sound she has come to think of as his thinking noise. Hermione is placed on the rug. She looks at the room. She looks at the mobile above the cot, assessing it, categorizing it, filing it under something. She looks at Minerva with dark eyes that are already, at 2 years old, the eyes of someone taking notes. She looks at Harry. Harry looks back. Then he grabs her rabbit's ear. A single decisive gesture, no hesitation. She grabs it back. Equally decisive. No hesitation whatsoever. Dumbledore, in the doorway, puts his hands behind his back in the manner of a man who has just watched something click into place that he will spend a long time trying to understand. Minerva, he says. I see it, she says. What they see is this. The mobile above the cot, which has been turning at its own slow pace since it appeared, speeds up. Not dramatically. But Minerva has been in this room for 2 weeks, and she knows its rhythms. And the mobile is moving faster, and neither child is touching it. The rabbit remains between them. Neither releases it. Hermione says something that is not yet a word but has the grammatical shape of a declarative sentence. Harry responds with the thinking noise. They appear to reach an arrangement. This is not a plan, Dumbledore will write in his private journal that night. This is people. It begins, as all the important things begin, with 2 children and a stuffed rabbit and a disagreement that ends in accord. The months move. The castle learns their rhythms and adjusts its own accordingly. Hermione talks, constantly, fluently, in the precise, complete sentences of a child for whom language arrived like a key turning in a lock. All at once, everything opened. She narrates what she sees. She asks questions about what she doesn't understand. She asks them of Minerva, of Dumbledore, of the portraits, of the suits of armor, which she has given names. The armor near the 3rd floor landing she calls Gerald. Gerald, to his credit, begins to stand slightly straighter. Harry achieves locomotion and crawls with single-minded velocity toward every staircase, every fire, every interesting thing in the castle. Hermione follows him everywhere with the proprietary concern of someone who has decided this particular person is her responsibility. She is 2 years old. She has already decided this. The first accidental magic happens on a Tuesday in the library, which is where they spend most of their time now that they have discovered it and formed the opinion, separately and then together, that it is the best room in the castle. Harry is 4 years and 3 months old. He has been trying to reach a book about dragons for approximately 7 minutes. The book is precisely 3 inches beyond where his arm reaches. He has established this through repeated experiment. He looks at the book. He wants the book. The book comes off the shelf and lands in his lap. Harry looks at it. He looks at his hands. He looks at Hermione, who is sitting 4 feet away and has seen the whole thing with the expression of someone filing information into a category she has recently created. "You did that," she says. "Yes," he says, though he is not entirely certain this is accurate. "How?" "I don't know." She considers this. "We should tell Professor Dumbledore." "We should read the dragon book first," Harry says. They read the dragon book first. That afternoon, Hermione delivers a thorough verbal report to Dumbledore, including the time of the incident, the object involved, the estimated distance, and her assessment of Harry's emotional state in the 7 minutes preceding the event. She has used the word preceding correctly. She is 5 years old. Dumbledore listens completely. When she finishes, he says, "And what do you think happened, Hermione?" "I think he moved it with his mind. With wanting it. I think wanting was the mechanism." That is an excellent hypothesis, and essentially correct. Magic, at its most fundamental, is intent made physical. What Harry experienced is the earliest and purest form of that, before training, before a wand, before any framework at all, just the gap between what is and what is wanted, closed by will. "I haven't done that yet," Hermione says. "No, because you are doing something different. Your magic moves inward. You are not pushing things away, you are pulling things toward you." Knowledge, pattern, structure. He pauses. "The books you have already read, do you remember all of them?" "Yes," she says, with the slight surprise of someone who assumed this was normal. "Every word?" "A beat." "Yes." "That," Dumbledore says, "is your accidental magic, Hermione. It has been happening since you arrived. You simply didn't recognize it as extraordinary because it felt like thinking." The silence that follows is the particular silence of a child encountering the idea that something they assumed was simply themselves is in fact something rarer than that. "I see," she says finally, in a voice that means I am going to need to reconsider several things. Minerva begins their formal education on the first Monday of 1985. She starts with observation. Not spell work. Observation. She takes them through the castle and she says, "Look at this, and tell me what you see." A door that opens without being touched. A staircase that has moved since yesterday. Gerald, whose posture has changed in a way that cannot be explained by physics. Harry sees motion. He sees things in relation to other things. He sees what has changed, and has a sense, not yet articulable, of why it has changed. Hermione sees systems. She sees the door that opens untouched and immediately begins asking questions about the mechanism. Is it responding to approach, or intent, or the specific magical signature of authorized persons, or some combination, and how does it distinguish between them? Minerva watches them in silence for 3 days before she writes anything down. What she writes is not a lesson plan. It is 2 words. Underlined. Different inputs. She tells Dumbledore 6 weeks later, when she is certain, they are not learning the same subject. Harry is learning the world as it moves, and Hermione is learning the world as it holds together. They will reach the same conclusions through entirely different routes. And when they work together, the routes converge, she says. That will make certain things considerably more complicated to teach. It will make certain things, he says, considerably more powerful to learn. Harry develops, around this age, what Minerva first notices as an unusual attentiveness to the castle's atmosphere and what Dumbledore, when she describes it to him, calls something else entirely. He feels it, Dumbledore says. The castle's mood. Its attention. Castles don't have moods, Albus. This one does, he says. I have always known it. I simply waited to see if he would find it. And Hermione? Hermione understands its logic. Harry understands its. He searches for the word, its aliveness. Together they understand it completely. Minerva files this under things she is not prepared to examine too closely yet, because there is a threshold in parenting, and she has, over 4 years, come to understand that this is what she is doing, that the word parenting is the accurate one. However unexpected it remains to find herself in possession of it, where the enormity of what you are witnessing must be set aside in favor of the practical work of the next day. The next day always comes. The books need reading. The lessons need teaching. The questions, and there are always questions, from both of them. A constant steady stream that comes at her from the moment they wake to the moment she insists they sleep, need answering. She answers all of them. This is the promise she made on a cold doorstep in November 1981, without making it aloud, without making it to anyone but herself. She would not look away. She would not close the door. She would not, under any circumstances, let the gap between what they needed and what they received go unfilled. She fills it. Every day she fills it. And the castle hums around her while she does. By the time they are 5 and 6 respectively, the castle has become, for both of them, something beyond a home and not quite the same thing as a school. It is their world, its corridors their streets, its towers their landmarks, its rhythms their clock. They know Hogwarts the way children who grow up in houses know those houses, in the soles of their feet and the backs of their hands, in the way they move through it without thinking, in the way they notice, instantly, when something has changed. Dumbledore sits in his office one evening in the autumn of 1986 and writes in his private journal the line that has been sitting in his chest for some time. You do not raise gods. You witness them becoming. He closes the journal, banks the fire, and goes to check that 2 children are asleep in the tower annex, which they are, Harry on his back, one arm flung wide, taking up more space than seems geometrically justified, Hermione on her side, her hand resting on a closed book she was reading when sleep arrived and took the decision out of her hands. He stands in the doorway for a moment. The castle breathes. He goes to bed. The letter arrives on a Wednesday, addressed to 2 people simultaneously. Carried by a single owl who lands between their breakfast plates with the particular air of a creature that takes its symbolic weight seriously. Harry picks it up. He reads it. He passes it to Hermione. She reads it. She sets it down. She picks up her toast and takes a bite with the deliberate calm of someone choosing, consciously, to be calm about something. The letter is from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, signed by Deputy Headmistress Minerva McGonagall, whose voice they can currently hear through the stone ceiling directly above them, formally informing Harry James Potter and Hermione Jean Granger that they have been accepted, beginning September the 1st, 1991. The supply list includes robes, a standard cauldron, and a copy of 1,000 magical herbs and fungi. They live here. They have lived here for 10 years. They know every corridor, every trick stair, every portrait, every ghost. We already have all of these, Hermione says. Better versions of most of them, Harry agrees. The cauldron requirement specifies pewter, size 2. We have a silver Founders era cauldron that Dumbledore gave us last year. I don't think we mentioned that. No, she agrees. I don't think we do. Upstairs, McGonagall's footsteps cross the ceiling with a specific cadence that means she is about to come down the stairs, and both of them look at each other with the look they have developed. 11 years old and already in possession of a nonverbal vocabulary of considerable range. That means we are going to let her have this moment. She comes through the door. She is holding her own copy of the letter. Her expression is the one she uses when she is experiencing something she finds significant and has decided to manage it by being extremely precise about practical matters. "Your letters have arrived," she says. "Yes," Harry says. "You'll need robes. Measured properly." "Professor McGonagall," Hermione says. "Hermione, are you pleased?" A pause. Minerva McGonagall sets the letter on the table, straightens it to be parallel with the edge of the table, and says, "I am extremely pleased." Then she picks up her tea and drinks it, and that is as much as they are going to get, and they both know it, and it is, somehow, entirely sufficient. The Sorting Hat, Dumbledore explains 3 days before term begins, is the oldest of the Founder's enchanted artifacts. In 1,000 years it has never been asked to sort 2 children who were already inside the school when they arrived. "It doesn't have a category for us," Hermione says. "It has categories for character. Those it always has." He looks at them both. What it does not have a precedent for is students who learned the school's magic before they learned to read, who felt the castle's wards before they felt rain. A pause. "I do not know what it will say. I want you to know that I genuinely do not know, and that whatever it says will be correct, and that I will be proud of you in any house you are placed." Harry says, "Even Slytherin?" "Especially Slytherin," Dumbledore says, with the serenity of a man who has examined this possibility and made his peace with it. "Salazar Slytherin was a great wizard who made a catastrophic philosophical error. His house has been paying for it ever since. A person of genuine quality in that house would do it considerable good." The first years stop when Harry and Hermione enter the anteroom off the Great Hall. Not a dramatic, orchestrated cessation, but a ripple of awareness, the kind that travels through a group of people when something enters the room that does not fit the category they were using for everything else. Harry pays the pale blonde boy at the edge of the group the precise amount of attention the situation requires, which is none. Hermione scans the room with the methodical efficiency of someone taking inventory, notes 7 things, and files them for later. Professor Quirrell enters and leads the group toward the Great Hall doors. Harry watches him the way he watches everything, from the inside out, reading atmosphere before detail, and something in his chest goes briefly, quietly wrong. Not pain, not fear. Something more like the feeling of a note, played slightly flat, technically present, fundamentally off. He files it. He will tell Hermione later. The hall is full. The candles float. The enchanted ceiling shows the early stars of a September evening. The first name is called. 42 students are sorted. Malfoy. Draco goes to Slytherin in approximately 4 seconds, with the air of someone for whom this was never in question. Then, McGonagall says, "Granger." Hermione. The hall goes quiet. Hermione walks to the stool and sits, and McGonagall lowers the hat over her head, and the hall waits, and the hat is quiet. 15 seconds. 30, a minute. "Well," it says, "there's a thing. 1,000 years I have been doing this. Do you know what this is? The first time I've sorted someone who already knows how the school smells in February? Who knows the sound the staircases make at 3 in the morning when they think no one can hear? I grew up here," she thinks at it. "This is my home." Yes, that's precisely the point. I'm not sorting a student into a home. I'm sorting a home into a student. Do you understand the difference? She considers it. No, not yet. Good answer. A pause that feels like a long look. You are the most organized mind I have encountered in 500 years. But you're not a collector of knowledge. You're a builder. You take what you know, and you make it into something that didn't exist before. And you would die, quite literally, before you stopped trying, before you left something unfinished, before you let someone you love face something alone. Hermione says nothing. It is not wrong. Gryffindor, the hat announces. The Gryffindor table erupts. Hermione walks to it, sits, and looks back toward the stool with calm brown eyes. McGonagall's expression, behind the scroll, is a thing of iron discipline. Then, Potter, Harry, the hall doesn't go quiet this time. It goes a different kind of still. The specific stillness of a room in which every person has, simultaneously, remembered something. Harry walks to the stool and the hat settles around his ears. "Oh," the hat says. Then, "Oh, I see." Then, in a different register entirely, like something very old arriving at a very new conclusion, "You feel the castle." "Yes," Harry says. "You feel it right now. The wards on the east wall. The charm work in the ceiling. The thing under the third-floor corridor that I have opinions about but am not going to discuss. You can feel all of it." "Yes, I cannot sort my own masters," the hat says, in a tone that has no precedent in 1,000 years of continuous thought. "You know this school in a way that predates the categories. You know it from the inside." "Then sort who I am," Harry says, "not what I know. Who I am." Another silence. Shorter this time. "Who you are," the hat says, "is someone who would walk into the dark without a plan if someone he loved was in it. Who would feel the castle burning and run toward it. Who has been watching a first year with bad intentions since the moment you entered this room tonight. And the fact that you filed it rather than acted on it tells me more about you than the watching does. Where do I belong? Where you have always belonged." "Gryffindor," it announces. The table rises, a wave of sound and motion that breaks against the stone ceiling. And Harry sits down beside Hermione. The noise continues around them. Across the hall, the pale blonde boy watches from the Slytherin table with an expression that has given up on indifference and settled, at last, into something more honest. Something that is, underneath everything else, impressed. At the staff table, Dumbledore's eyes are very bright behind his spectacles. He is watching two children at the Gryffindor table who are already deep in quiet conversation, heads bent, something being exchanged that the hall cannot hear, and he is thinking, this is not a plan. This is people. And the people are going to be magnificent. Fawkes sings 2 notes. Just 2. It is, as always, enough. Harry has been filing the wrongness about Quirrell since the sorting. That flat note, that slightly off quality to the air around the man, the way standing near him produces a sensation like pressing your palm against a cold window and feeling something press back from the other side. Hermione notices different things. She notices that Quirrell's magical signature, a thing she can read the way some people read expressions, flickers, not randomly, but in the way of something carrying 2 weights in a space designed for one, like a sentence written over another sentence in the same ink, where both can be read if you look at the right angle. She tells Harry on a Thursday in October. There are 2 of him. The outer signature is Quirrell, frightened, which is genuine, and weak, which is performed. The inner signature is fragmented. It's like a piece of something. A shard. Voldemort, Harry says. A piece of him survived Godric's Hollow and has been looking for a way back. She pauses. The 3rd floor corridor. The stone. Whatever Dumbledore has locked up there, Quirrell wants it. Something in Voldemort wants it badly enough to use a person. They go to Dumbledore that evening. Hermione presents. She presents the situation the way she presents everything. From the foundation, each layer placed carefully on the one below. No gaps, no assumptions, that what she understands is automatically understood by whoever she is speaking to. She speaks for 8 minutes without notes. When she finishes, he removes his spectacles and says, "A Horcrux." Very quietly. It is not clear he intends it to be heard. "What is a Horcrux?" Hermione asks. "A thing that should not exist, and does. A method of splitting the soul deliberately, of storing a fragment in an external object, so that if the body is destroyed, the soul cannot wholly die." He puts his spectacles back on. "I had theorized. Now I have confirmation. There could be more than one," Harry says. "Yes, there could. Then destroying Quirrell doesn't end it." "No," Dumbledore agrees. Hermione designs a ward that reads soul resonance signatures at the corridor entrance and bars entry to fragmented presences. Harry calibrates a monitoring charm keyed to his sensitivity to Quirrell's wrongness. Dumbledore implements both. He does not publicize this. Meanwhile, Quirrell teaches defense against the dark arts, with the trembling, stuttering incompetence of a man who is performing trembling, stuttering incompetence. And most of the school is convinced. And Harry and Hermione are not. And they never look at him in class the way they actually see him. Because looking at someone the way you actually see them is information. And information is leverage, and leverage is not something you display before you're ready to use it. They are first years. They sit in the back row of defense. They take notes on the assigned material and write essays that are excellent without being conspicuous, which requires more craft than writing excellent essays would on its own. In March, the fragment makes its move. Harry feels it at 11 p.m., the castle bond pulling his attention toward the third floor, with the insistence of a hand on his shoulder in a dark room. He is in the corridor before he has made a decision. Hermione is already there. "Third floor," she says. Yes, they move through the castle the way they have moved through it since they could walk, not cautiously, because caution implies uncertainty. And they have none, but carefully, which is different. They know which steps creak. They know which portraits sleep light. They know the third-floor corridor by feel. Quirrell is at the trapdoor. The trembling has stopped. The eyes that find them across the room are not the watery, anxious eyes of the defense professor. Then Hermione raises her hand, and without a wand, without an incantation, with nothing but the precise architecture of intent she has been building since she was 2 years old in a flat in Hackney, she performs a stunning charm, calibrated in the half-second between raising her hand and releasing the magic to account for the fact that the outer layer is human and must not be damaged beyond. Recovery. Quirrell drops. The fragment screams, not aloud, not in any register the castle's stones can carry, but Harry hears it through the bond like a door slamming in a house full of rooms. And then it goes quiet. Harry looks at Hermione. She is looking at her own hand with the clinical attention of a person assessing the quality of their own work. The fragment is suppressed, not destroyed. He'll need to be seen by Dumbledore before he regains consciousness. He sends the signal charm. They sit on the cold stone floor of the third-floor corridor, side by side, backs against the wall, in the particular companionable quiet of two people who have just been through something together and do not need to discuss it yet. Dumbledore arrives in 4 minutes. He looks at Quirrell on the floor. He looks at Harry and Hermione sitting against the wall with the composed calm of people who have done what needed doing and are prepared to write a full incident report. "Well," he says. "The ward needs redesigning," Hermione says. "I know how to fix it." Dumbledore looks at her for a long moment. Then he says, with the particular gentleness of someone who has just realized that the thing he hoped to protect has quietly become the thing doing the protecting, "I know you do." The chamber opens in October of their second year. Hermione identifies it before the first petrification. She has been in the library since September, following a thread of logic that began with the Founder's History section and ended in a very old manuscript that Madame Pince catalogued in 1967 as unintelligible, possible early Gaelic dialect. Hermione spends 3 weeks determining it is not early Gaelic, but a form of magical shorthand used by Slytherin's inner circle, and translates it with the systematic patience of someone who finds dead languages less frustrating than living people. She tells Harry what she's found on a Sunday in October, walking the eastern grounds. There's a chamber below the school. Slytherin built it at the founding, not in the Hogwarts histories because he didn't want it there. He designed it as a purge mechanism, something inside it that he could activate if the school became, in his view, too impure. "The monster in the pipes," Harry says. He has been hearing it for 3 weeks through the castle bond, not sound exactly. But the castle's awareness of something very large moving through its oldest infrastructure, something the castle is not afraid of, but is not comfortable with either. A basilisk. The mechanism is Parseltongue. Only a Parselmouth can open the chamber and direct the basilisk, which means it's not Quirrell. Not this year, it's a student, Harry says slowly. Someone is directing it away from killing. The victims didn't meet its gaze directly. Someone who wants terror, not murder. Someone who was given a diary that's more than a diary. He pauses. Ginny Weasley has been carrying a diary since September. The privacy around it has an edge. The way people are private about things that are making them do things they don't want to do. A Horcrux, Hermione says. It has to be. He pauses. Lucius Malfoy was at Diagon Alley when we were there in August. He and Arthur Weasley argued. Ginny's cauldron was on the floor. The silence between them has weight. They sit with it. We can't go to Dumbledore with an accusation we can't prove, Hermione says. We need the diary itself. Soul sight confirmation. And we need to find the chamber's entrance. The pipes, Harry says. He closes his eyes. The castle bond is always present. Directing it is the difference between hearing the room and listening to a specific voice in it. He listens for the oldest part of the castle, the part that lies deepest. Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, he says. Hermione opens her notebook. They spend 2 weeks preparing, reading every text on basilisks the library contains, studying the mechanics of the gaze, the single known vulnerability. The basilisk's own reflected gaze is lethal to itself. Reflections, water, camera lenses produce petrification instead of death. We can't bring a rooster into the chamber, Harry says. No. Hermione agrees. But we can bring a mirror. It is Draco Malfoy who provides the final piece about the diary's origin, entirely without intending to. It is a December afternoon, the great hall emptying after lunch, and Draco falls into step beside Harry with the practiced casualness of someone executing a plan. The chamber business, he says, keeping his voice low. It'll close itself. When the point's been made, you don't need to go looking for answers. Harry walks 2 steps in silence. And what's the point, would you say? That some people don't belong here. The words are rote, delivered from a script, with an underlying conviction that is complicated, and has, Harry suspects, more fault lines in it than Draco's father would like. That the school has categories that have meaning. Can I ask you something? Harry says. Draco looks briefly uncertain, which is the honest response. What? Do you believe that? Harry's voice is entirely level. This is not a challenge. It is genuinely a question. When you're not performing it. When it's just you, thinking. Do you actually believe some people don't belong here? The pause that follows is not the calculated beat of someone managing a conversation, but the uncalculated pause of someone being asked something they have not been asked before. I was raised by Albus Dumbledore and Minerva McGonagall, Harry says. It is not a boast. What were you raised by? It lands the way a genuine question lands, without the shape of an attack, but with the impact of one, because it goes somewhere that a prepared defense doesn't cover. Draco walks away, not with deliberate speed, but with the uncertain speed of someone who needs to be somewhere they can think. Hermione appears at Harry's elbow. That was well done. He's not the problem, Harry says. He never was. No, she agrees. But he might become something other than a complication, if he's handled honestly. I wasn't handling him. I was asking him a question. Yes, she says. That's exactly what I mean. They find the diary the following Thursday, in December. Set down very deliberately. The way you set down something you've decided you don't want to carry anymore but can't quite leave. Hermione picks it up. Her face does the thing it does when she finds what she was looking for and is not glad to have been right. It's a Horcrux, the same fragmented structure as Quirrell's passenger, but bound to an object rather than a person. This is how Voldemort survived Godric's Hollow. He made multiple. He split himself multiple times. Then we destroy this one, and we tell Dumbledore everything, and we build him the full picture. Harry's voice remains level. Lucius Malfoy put a piece of Voldemort into a child, deliberately, into Ginny Weasley because she was convenient, and her father was his enemy, and she was 11 years old. The level of someone who has found anger and decided it is not, in this moment, useful, that has consequences. We build the evidence, and we apply them correctly. They go to the chamber that night, prepared, together, without performance and without hesitation. What they find is a monster that is also, when you look at it correctly, something else, a creature that has been used. directed and weaponized and reduced to a mechanism in someone else's argument. What they do is end the argument. They leave the chamber at midnight. The diary is destroyed. Hermione's work, precise and complete. Ginny Weasley is sitting in the entrance of Myrtle's bathroom wrapped in Harry's robes, shaking with the specific shaking of someone who has been held by something they didn't consent to and has just been released. "He's gone," Hermione says, sitting beside her. "The thing in the diary. It's gone." Harry sends the signal charm and then sits on the cold bathroom floor and waits. And the castle breathes around all three of them, steady, unchanged, certain. Ginny Weasley comes to find Harry in the library on a Saturday in March. Not Hermione, specifically Harry. Which Hermione understands immediately as a thing she should give space to and absence herself with a book and diplomatic timing. Ginny sits across from Harry. She is 11. She looks like someone who has been through something and has decided, by main force of will, not to be defined by it. I need to know what it was. What was in the diary? Harry tells her the truth. Not all of it. Not the broader architecture of Horcruxes and Voldemort's survival strategy. But the part that belongs to her. What the diary was. What it was doing to her. That it was designed to do exactly what it did. And that nothing it made her do is a thing she chose. She listens. She doesn't cry. She asks 2 clarifying questions, both of them good ones. Then she says, "Lucius Malfoy put it in my cauldron." "Yes, you've reported that." "Yes," she nods slowly. "And?" "He's resigned from the Board of Governors. The investigation is ongoing." He pauses. It moves slowly. People with his resources have tools for slowing things down. But it moves. It moves, he says. It doesn't stop. Evidence delivered correctly doesn't stop. She is quiet for a moment. Then she says, with the precise flat certainty of someone who has just organized something important in their own mind, "Good." She leaves. Harry watches her go and thinks that she is going to be. When she gets through this, remarkable. He writes it in his notebook, GW, remarkable. Then he closes the notebook and goes to find Hermione, who is 3 tables away pretending to read about Dittany and very visibly not reading about Dittany. "Well?" she says. "She's going to be fine," Harry says. "I know. She's the kind of person who gets through things." She pauses. "The Lucius Malfoy investigation. I want to add the basilisk evidence. The forensic chain from the diary to the chamber to the possession traces directly back to him. Can we get a basilisk's testimony entered as evidence under pre-ministry creature law?" She opens her notebook to a page covered in small, dense writing. "I've been researching it for 6 weeks. Yes, we can. It's complicated, but it's there." He looks at the page. It is exactly as complicated as she implied, and exactly as possible. This is Hermione's consistent position on difficult things. They are possible, and the difficulty is the path between here and possible, and paths can be mapped. "Okay," he says. "Let's map it." When the evidence file is delivered to Amelia Bones 6 weeks later, by Gringotts Owl, as before. Arriving at her desk before the Ministry Owl service has opened for the morning, it includes a 48-page appendix containing a translated transcript of a conversation held in Parcel Tongue in the Chamber of Secrets, duly certified by Gringotts' Magical Creature Division as a valid witness account, countersigned by the only living Parselmouth in Britain, who is 13 years old and signs his name in careful, small handwriting. Harry James Potter. This is the first thing Harry knows when he wakes the morning after the chamber. The castle bond carries it like a current. The creature is still in the pipes. Still breathing. Without the diary's direction, but present. The vast, cold patience of something that has been alive for a very long time. He tells Hermione at breakfast. Without the diary's control, it's just present. An extraordinarily old and dangerous animal living in the school's plumbing. "We could kill it," she says. "Conjure a rooster." "We could," he agrees. They look at each other. "But," she says. "But," he says. "A basilisk that has been alive for 1,000 years. Killing it without at minimum attempting to understand it would be the kind of irreversible decision that forecloses everything. This is a thing Dumbledore has taught them, the difference between what is urgent and what is irreversible. They go to Dumbledore with a proposal. Harry will go back into the chamber and speak to it. Dumbledore will come with him. Hermione will wait at the entrance with monitoring charms and a list of contingency actions. The chamber is different in daylight. The basilisk is coiled at the far end, occupying 40 feet of floor space. It scales the dull, tarnished green of old bronze. Its eyes are closed. Harry speaks, not in English. I am not the one who sent you here last night. I am not the heir. I am the one who destroyed the thing that was directing you. The basilisk's attention shifts. He can feel it the way you feel a change in atmospheric pressure. I know, it says. How long have you been down here? Long. The quality of the pause is immense. The one who placed me here is long gone. The ones who came after, two, over the long time, neither stayed. Neither spoke to me. I'm speaking to you now. Yes, a long exhale of breath that moves the witchlight slightly. You are the castle's child. I can feel it. You carry the castle with you. Yes, I grew up here. Then you know what I know. The castle is old. It was here before the argument. It will be here after. The argument? The one the first one had. About blood. About who is permitted. Another, slow exhale. I was placed here for that argument, as its instrument. I am not the argument. I was never the argument. No. Harry says. You weren't. What will you do with me? I have not decided. Harry says, in Parseltongue, which does not carry the architecture for comfortable approximation, this arrives with its full weight. I want to decide correctly. The castle trusts you. Yes, then I will wait, it says. I have been waiting for a long time. Waiting for someone who will decide correctly is not different from any other waiting. I will come back, Harry says. I give you my word. What follows involves 3 goblins, 2 Department of Magical Creatures representatives who sign confidentiality agreements, Hermione's 30-page research summary on basilisk cognition and magical creature rights under pre-ministry law, and a formal appeal to the Hogwarts Board of Governors. The outcome is classified. There is a sealed file in the headmaster's records, and a second in Gringotts. There is a third document, much shorter, that Harry writes himself, a record of a conversation, ending with the note that the matter was handled to the satisfaction of all parties, including the party that had been consulted least in the 1,000 years preceding. Meanwhile, the evidence file on Lucius Malfoy is delivered to Amelia Bones at the Department of Magical Law Enforcement by Gringotts Owl, arriving before the Ministry Owl service has opened for the morning. Lucius Malfoy will not know it is coming until it has already arrived. He resigns from the Hogwarts Board of Governors on a Tuesday afternoon without waiting to be removed. Harry receives the notification at breakfast on a Wednesday. He reads it. He passes it to Hermione. She reads it, sets it down, and returns to her porridge. One thing at a time, she says. Yes, he says. The file on Sirius Black arrives on Dumbledore's desk in July, 3 weeks before 3rd year begins. Minerva sets it there without comment and sits down across from him and waits. It is not the Ministry's file. This file is Hermione's, built since April, when the news of Sirius Black's escape reached Hogwarts as a Ministry alert, and Harry read it at breakfast with the expression that means, something here does not add up. What Harry noticed was a single sentence buried in the 3rd paragraph. Black was committed to Azkaban on November 3, 1981, following his apprehension at the scene. No mention of a trial, no hearing, no charges presented and argued in a court of law, because there was no court of law. There was a street in Muggle London, 12 dead Muggles, a man laughing, and an assumption so total that no one thought to examine whether it was also accurate. The file is 114 pages. The assumption was incorrect, Minerva says when Dumbledore finishes reading. Hermione's reconstruction places Peter Pettigrew at the scene. The damage pattern of the explosion. She sourced 3 independent forensic analyses that were never cross-referenced, because different departments, different filing systems. The blast came from below ground level. Pettigrew was standing directly over a sewer access point. He pauses. A man who had been an unregistered animagus, a rat, for 20 years with access to the sewer system, staged his own death and let Sirius Black take responsibility for it. Minerva says, very precisely, where is Pettigrew now? Alive, Hermione believes he has been in his animagus form since 1981. She has 2 candidate locations, based on the registered animagus records and the known movements of families who keep pet rats. Minerva opens the file to the last section, required actions. 9 pages long, organized by urgency, then by jurisdiction. She wants us to move before Sirius Black is found by someone who will not stop to ask the questions she has already answered. If the Dementors find him first, he dies, Dumbledore says, legally, and the truth will never be examined. Then we move before term starts. Harry signs the petition for a formal hearing in Dumbledore's office in August, with Hermione's legal annotations in every margin. He does it with the gravity of someone who understands this is not a form. This is a person's life, organized into sections, and the signature at the bottom is a promise. He signs it carefully. His handwriting is not as neat as Hermione's. It is neater than usual. The petition is filed with the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Amelia Bones reads it in one sitting and clears her Thursday. She issues a formal hold order. Sirius Black, if apprehended, is to be detained for a hearing. The Dementor's kiss is suspended pending legal review. Sirius Black is found in October, not by Aurors but by the castle bond. Harry wakes at 3 a.m. with the bond pulling his attention toward the edge of the Forbidden Forest. A man has been at the boundary for 2 hours, not trying to breach the wards, just existing at them, which suggests he knows they are there, which suggests he knows the school. Harry goes to find Minerva. He goes to find Minerva, and not to the forest himself, because Sirius Black is a man he does not know who has been in Azkaban for 12 years, and going to him alone in the dark without preparation is not caution. It is ego. He knows the difference. They find Sirius sitting against a tree in his animagus form, a great black dog with the specific exhaustion of a creature that has been running for a very long time. Minerva casts the light. The transformation is slow and effortful, and when it is done there is a man sitting against the tree who looks like 12 years of Azkaban, which is exactly what he is. He looks at Minerva, then at Harry. He does not say you look like James. He says nothing at all for a long time, and what moves through his face is too complicated to name and too private to try. We've filed for a hearing, Harry says. There's a hold order. Hermione built the case. 114 pages. Pettigrew, the explosion analysis, the missing trial records. Everything. He pauses. You're going to be heard. Sirius makes a sound that is not a word. He puts his face in his hands. Minerva, who has not survived 63 years by being sentimental in public, says, "Come inside. There's a fire in my office, and I believe the elves keep biscuits." The hearing is held on November 14th in the Wizengamot chamber. It lasts 6 hours. Hermione, who cannot attend as a participant but has prepared a 60-page briefing document for the presenting counsel, sits in the gallery with Harry and does not fidget, which costs her considerable effort. Harry sits beside her and watches the chamber with the same attention he brings to everything. He watches Amelia Bones present the forensic evidence with the competence of a woman who has no political investment in the outcome and is interested only in what is accurate. He watches the 2 ministry officials who try to introduce procedural objections be quietly dismantled by the presenting counsel, who is citing legislation that predates the ministry and therefore does not require the ministry's cooperation to apply. The vote is not close. It was never going to be close, given Hermione's 114 pages. The formal finding, Sirius Orion Black was imprisoned without trial, without sufficient evidence, without the basic procedural protections that wizarding law has provided for 400 years. His imprisonment was therefore unlawful. He is accordingly free. Free, the word is a strange one for something so simple and so enormous. Sirius sits in the defendant's chair and hears it, and does not react immediately. He sits with it, this word that has been the opposite of his life for 12 years, and then puts his face in his hands, and the chamber is quiet. And Dumbledore, in the gallery, looks at the ceiling with the expression of a man who has seen many terrible things and is, right now, watching the reversal of one of them. The press statement is 3 paragraphs. Fact, the specific procedural failures, and 2 final sentences. The wizarding justice system exists to determine truth, not to confirm assumptions. We invite the ministry to consider, in the wake of this finding, how many other files deserve the same examination. Amelia Bones reads the statement over her morning coffee. She reads it twice. Then she opens her calendar and blocks out a month. The Goblet of Fire spits Harry's name on a Thursday evening in October of their 4th year, and the Great Hall goes very quiet. And Harry looks at the parchment and feels something he has learned to pay close attention to, the specific quality of wrongness that is not instinct, but information. He does not stand immediately. He sits for a moment, reading the situation from the outside in. His name came out of the goblet. He did not put it in. He is 14, below the age restriction, and had no interest in the tournament. He and Hermione discussed it in September, and agreed that a competition designed to produce a single champion through dangerous tasks was not a thing either of them needed to win. Someone entered his name. Someone who knew the goblet well enough to deceive a 1,000-year-old enchanted artifact. Someone who wanted Harry Potter in the tournament badly enough to commit to the considerable magical difficulty of it. He tells Hermione that night. He tells her everything, including what he noticed about Alistair Moody, the new defense professor, during the Champions meeting. A man with Moody's history of genuine vigilance would produce a different quality of attention when facing an unexpected development. Moody produced the stillness of something waiting for a cue, directed inward toward a plan rather than outward toward the event. Who benefits from you being in the tournament? Hermione asks. Voldemort. If someone near the tournament is working for him and the tournament is the delivery system, Moody, or someone using Moody. Bartemius Crouch Jr. was at Azkaban, allegedly dead, and he was a convicted Death Eater who would know exactly how to find, neutralize, and replace someone like Moody. She goes still. Convicted 1981. Sentenced to Azkaban. Died in Azkaban. On record. On record, Harry says. We need his magical signature. I need to see if there's a double layer. She reads it at the wand weighing. A 10-second window when Moody stands close enough and still enough. There is a double layer. Not possession, but a person performing being a different person, wearing an identity long enough that the layers are very close together. They go to Dumbledore the next morning with the complete evidence set. The tournament ends with a portkey, Harry says. The final task, the maze. Something in the maze is the mechanism. The cup is the portkey. Whatever the end of this is supposed to be, it involves me being taken somewhere. Then, we do 2 things simultaneously, Dumbledore says. We investigate the real Moody, and we prepare you for a final task designed to end with your capture. We prepare him, Hermione says, for a final task that ends with the exposure of the plan, instead. The preparation takes 6 weeks. Hermione builds a systematic breakdown of the task's likely structure, the specific spells and counterspells required, the environmental variables, the contingencies. She starts with what they know about maze construction, about the beasts likely to be used, about the curse varieties that tournament organizers are legally permitted to incorporate, and works outward until she has a map, not of the actual maze, but of the possibility space the maze can occupy. Every scenario they can imagine, they prepare for. Harry does the practical work while Hermione does the theoretical work, and then they exchange. She does the practical, he checks the theory, and the things that survive both processes are the things that go into the actual preparation. This is how they have always worked. It is, by now, as natural as breathing. The confrontation is brief. Crouch Jr., with the polyjuice wearing thin, looks at Dumbledore and understands in approximately 2 seconds that the plan has collapsed. Then he laughs, not with hysteria, but with the dark satisfaction of a true believer who has failed at the task, but not at the faith. He'll come back without me, Crouch Jr. says. You've only delayed it. Yes, Dumbledore says, very calmly. We know, this is the more alarming thing, that Dumbledore is not arguing the point. The final task happens anyway. Harry enters the maze with 6 weeks of preparation and the Castle Bond and Hermione's possibility space map. He encounters a blast-ended Scroot, which he redirects, a golden mist that reverses direction, for which they prepared, a boggart that takes Hermione's shape, which is the hardest thing in the maze, and the one they could not fully prepare for. Defeated not with a charm, but with a specific and private act of understanding he never discusses afterward. He reaches the cup. He can feel through the Bond the Portkey enchantment, prepared by someone who has done this many times. But the cup is not going where Crouch Jr. planned. The plan was dismantled in November. The cup is going to a graveyard in Little Hangleton that is now occupied by 4 of Bones's Aurors and 1 very prepared contingency. Harry touches the cup. The Portkey activates. He arrives surrounded by Aurors who were told to expect him. He will tell Hermione later what it felt like. He will think about it and say, like the end of a chapter, not a victory. Just the end of this particular approach. She will write it down. He knows she will write it down. Dolores Umbridge arrives at Hogwarts on the 1st of September of their 5th year, with a cardigan the color of a bruise and the specific smile of someone who has already decided what they think of a room before entering it. Harry watches her walk the length of the staff table and catalogues what he sees. She is not nervous. A new teacher in a new school is almost always nervous, but Umbridge is not nervous because she is not here as a teacher. She is here as an implementation. The educational decrees begin in October. Ministry authority over staffing and curriculum. Student organizations requiring ministry approval. Discussion of ongoing ministry investigations prohibited in classrooms. Each decree arrives by owl, on ministry parchment with appropriate seals, and is posted by Filch with the energy of a man who has waited a long time for someone to give him more rules. Harry reads each decree once. He goes to Hermione. She has her annotations spread on the table in 3 colors, black for factual issues, red for legal problems, and blue for what reveals the strategy underlying the legislation rather than just the legislation itself. The blue annotations outnumber the others. She's not here to improve education, Hermione says. The curriculum changes strip out everything practical in defense. No spells, no counter curses, no combat theory. Pure ministry-approved theory. The only reason you remove practical defense during a period of rising dark activity is if you want a generation of witches and wizards who cannot defend themselves, or if you want to make the point that there is no dark activity. Fudge's position, Harry says. Deny the threat. Undermine the people describing it. Control the information environment. The problem is that this strategy requires the threat to cooperate by remaining deniable, and Voldemort has not historically been cooperative. She pauses. Decree 2 is the interesting one. Student organizations requiring ministry approval means she can deny anything she considers subversive. She opens her notebook to a fresh page. Which is what we're going to run. We file for approval. We call it something accurate and boring. We use an approved faculty supervisor who will genuinely supervise. We run the practicum openly, with records, with curriculum documentation, everything that makes it impossible to shut down on procedural grounds. What do we call it? The Defense Association. It's in the name. It's exactly what it is. Anyone who tries to close it has to explain what they object to about students defending themselves. Professor Flitwick agrees in 30 seconds. He signs the form and says, "Don't thank me. Just teach them well." The Defense Association meets in the room of requirement. 40 students from all 4 houses attend the first session, not a Gryffindor initiative, but a plain and practical response to a gap that students from every house can see and are concerned about. This is a detail Harry notes and considers significant, that it is not a Gather the Believers initiative, not a rally, but simply a group of people who have noticed an absence and would like it filled. Hermione does the curriculum. Harry does the teaching, with Hermione alongside for the technical explanations that require more precision than he naturally applies to things he can do intuitively. This is a division of labor they have practiced for years. In different contexts, he feels the magic. She maps it. Together they transmit it. By November, 30 students can produce a credible shield charm. By December, 20 can sustain it under pressure. By February, Neville Longbottom, who has been underestimated for 5 years by a system that does not know what to do with a student who has been working throughout with his father's wand rather than one suited to him, a mismatch the standard curriculum has never paused to address. Produces a stunning spell that hits the target's center of gravity rather than its visible surface, the more sophisticated version, correctly executed. Harry tells him after the session that the spell was excellent. You hit what you were actually aiming at, Harry says. Most people aim at what they can see. You aimed at what matters. That's harder. And you did it correctly. Something in Neville's face settles, some long-held uncertainty shifting into something that is not yet confidence, but is its immediate precursor. Umbridge's first attempt to close the Defense Association comes in January. Decree 14, prohibiting unapproved student assemblies. Hermione is in Dumbledore's office the next morning with the association's ministry approval documentation. Its faculty supervision records, and a 4-page legal analysis ending with a single question. Does the ministry wish to formally establish that its decrees are advisory rather than binding? She will escalate, Dumbledore says. Yes, we want her to. Escalation requires justification. Documentation creates a record. She pauses. When she commits to the blood quill, it's coming. I have 6 sworn statements from students. The record becomes actionable. Stopping Umbridge doesn't fix the problem. The problem is the ministry's belief that it can override Hogwarts' independence. We need to stop the mechanism, not the instance. The mechanism is Article 1 of the Founders' Statute, there since the school's founding. Predating the ministry by 500 years, the governance of Hogwarts resides wholly and entirely in the office of the headmaster, the authority of the Founders' Statutes, and the living magical covenant of the school's foundation. No external governing body may override, suspend, or subordinate this authority without the dissolution of the school's foundational magic, which dissolution cannot be effected by any external body, being the exclusive province of the school itself. Hermione finds it in September. She spends 3 weeks verifying it remains legally operative. Then she writes the invocation, 3 pages. The first page establishes the statute's continued authority. The second documents every educational decree that violates Article 1. The third is the formal invocation itself, requiring Dumbledore's signature as headmaster, Harry's co-signature as the castle-bonded heir, and the counter-signatures of any 3 members of staff. If I sign this, Dumbledore says on a Wednesday evening in March, every educational decree dissolves. The ministry will have no mechanism to reimpose it without dissolving the school's foundational magic, which they cannot do. Yes, Hermione says. Fudge will call it an act of war. Fudge will call it whatever helps him avoid examining whether he's been wrong, Harry says. He has been wrong. The record we've built since September proves it. The invocation doesn't attack the ministry, it reestablishes what was always true. Hogwarts was never subject to this kind of oversight. The decrees were always void. We're not creating a new legal reality. We're documenting the existing one. Dumbledore is quiet for what is, by Harry's count, the longest silence he has produced in 14 years of knowing him. Then he picks up his pen. He signs. The invocation is delivered to the ministry on a Thursday morning by Gringotts' courier. Arriving at Fudge's desk before his second cup of tea, simultaneously delivered to the Daily Prophet, the Wizengamot's administrative office, Amelia Bones's department, and the offices of 4 international magical governments. By noon, Umbridge's educational decrees are legally void. By 4 p.m., Umbridge has been recalled to the ministry, where she spends the afternoon with 3 lawyers who keep using the phrase foundational magical sovereignty in tones of increasing discomfort. She does not return to Hogwarts. Harry eats his dinner. He does not celebrate. This is the specific equanimity of someone who has been working toward an outcome for 7 months, and finds, when the outcome arrives, that the satisfaction is quieter than expected and the list of remaining work is as long as it was this morning. Hermione across from him is already writing. He can see the top of her notebook page. Post-invocation, required actions. There are already 8 items on the list. 8 items, he says. 2 are too small to show from where you're sitting, she says, without looking up. Outside the windows, the March evening is cold and clear, and tomorrow Voldemort is still in the world and the Horcruxes are not all found, and the war has not arrived yet but is coming, and the list has 8 items, and one of them will be first. It is enough. For today. The last Horcrux outside Voldemort himself is found on a Tuesday. This is not surprising to Harry, who has learned that the universe has no preference for dramatic timing, and that the most consequential moments of his life have consistently arrived on ordinary days in ordinary weather, with no atmospheric preparation whatsoever. It is a Tuesday in June. The sky is the flat gray of early summer overcast. The Riddle House sits on its hill above Little Hangleton, emanating the specific atmosphere of a place that has been used for terrible things and has not been cleaned of them. The last Horcrux is Nagini. They have known this since fourth year, when the full Horcrux architecture became clear enough to map. In sixth year they have destroyed, in order, the locket from the cave. Retrieved after 2 months of ward analysis, and one precisely executed piece of environmental transfiguration that collapsed the cave's internal structure, the cup from the Lestrange vault. Requiring a Gringotts negotiation Hermione conducted over 6 weeks, resulting in an interspecies cooperation agreement she considers among her better work. The diadem from the Room of Requirement, where it had been among the lost things for centuries. The ring they found in 5th year. The diary is long gone. The Scar Horcrux, the piece of Voldemort's soul that lodged in Harry on the night at Godric's Hollow, is the piece they cannot destroy by conventional means. The oldest texts call what is required the willing passage, the deliberate offering of one's self to death and back. It is something you do when everything else is ready, so that the act of it is the final piece rather than a variable in an unresolved equation. Everything else is almost ready. Nagini is last. The approach to the Riddle House takes 2 hours, not for the distance, but because Hermione has been building the approach strategy for 3 months, and it requires arrival on foot. From the eastern tree line, after a ward reading circuit that maps every layer of protection. 7 layers, she says, walking through the trees at the field's edge. The outer 5 are standard. The 6th reads your magical signature and triggers a direct alert to him wherever he is. I've written a charm that projects a false signature 20 meters to our left. He'll know something has crossed the perimeter, but not what, and not where exactly. That buys approximately 6 minutes before he determines the signature is false. And Nagini? Nagini, she says, I need you for. This is the part of the plan that Dumbledore, when they presented it to him, called the most elegant thing I have ever been asked to review, and the thing I am most frightened of. The plan for Nagini is this. Harry speaks to her, not in combat, not with a wand raised, not with the specific quality of intent that she can read as threat. He speaks in Parseltongue, built over 2 years from instinct into something more precise, capable of nuance. The conversation, if it works, will be an offer. The same offer he made to the basilisk in the chamber 4 years ago. Freedom. Not the freedom of escape. Nagini is bound to Voldemort by magic that cannot be removed by any spell they have found in any text. But there is a freedom the Ars Mortis tradition calls the willing passage, death accepted by one's own will, which the oldest magic distinguishes from killing as cleanly as it distinguishes anything. It cannot be forced. It cannot be faked. The magic is self-verifying. If the will is not genuine, it does not work. Harry has sufficient soul integrity. Nagini has sufficient self-awareness. What they cannot know until the conversation is whether she will choose it. They cross the 5th ward layer at 11 p.m. The false signature charm activates. Harry feels it leave Hermione's hand with the specific quality of something technically perfect, which her work always has. The feeling of a thing made exactly as well as it needed to be made. Nagini finds them at the field's edge 7 minutes later, 12 feet of darkness moving through the grass with the liquid patience of a creature that has been hunting for a century and has never been outrun. She stops 10 feet away. Her head rises. Her eyes carry the specific quality Harry has learned to read as attention, rather than aggression. She is looking at them the way Hermione looks at things, to understand them first. Harry steps forward. Hermione stays at his shoulder, present, not retreating, because retreating would be read as something specific and she knows it. He speaks. I am not here to harm you. The grass moves. Nagini's attention sharpens, not the sharpening of something preparing to strike, but the sharpening of something that has been addressed in a language it did not expect. You know this language, she says. Yes, you are the castle's child. He speaks of you. He fears you. A pause, vast and slow. The pause of something measuring the gap, between what it knows and what is being offered. Why are you here? Harry is quiet for a moment. In Parseltongue, the quality of intent cannot be dishonest. The language does not have a mechanism for dishonesty. I am here because you deserve to be asked, he says. Not told, not used. Asked. Asked what? Whether you want to be free. The grass is very still. Somewhere in the Riddle house a light moves, the false signature being investigated. 6 minutes, Hermione said, and some of those minutes are gone. He has bound me, Nagini says. The binding is not breakable. I know. I'm not offering to break it. I'm offering something older than the binding. He pauses. The willing passage, your own choice, made freely, without compulsion. The oldest magic there is. You are asking me to die. I am asking if you want to, Harry says. If you don't, I won't harm you. I give you my word, and I keep it. The castle knows I keep it. If you do, if you are tired, if you have been bound long enough, if you would rather end than continue to be used, then I will be here. And the magic will be clean. And you will not be killed. You will be released. The silence that follows is the longest of Harry's life. He stands in a field in Little Hangleton in the June dark and waits, and Nagini considers what has been offered to her with the full and enormous weight of a creature that has been alive for 107 years, and has never, not once, been offered a choice. I am tired, she says, finally. I know. He does not see me. He has never seen me. I am a weapon he carries. A slow exhale, enormous and cold. I have been a weapon for 40 years. Before that, for 60 years, I was simply alive. I remember being simply alive. Then be released, Harry says. Go back to that. Whatever is after, it is not this. He extends his left hand, open, palm up. Not his wand hand, the receiving posture that the Ars Mortis describes. Present, not grasping. Offering contact without demanding it. Nagini lowers her head to his palm. The willing passage requires no spell. It requires only the complete, unambiguous will of both parties, meeting in the space between them. Harry holds it, not pushing, not pulling, simply present with the full weight of his own soul integrity, the thing Hermione built her soul sight reading of him on 3 years ago when she told Dumbledore. He is exactly what he appears to be, which is the rarest thing she has found in any magical signature she has ever read. Nagini closes her eyes. The Horcrux fragment inside her comes apart, not with violence, not with the resistance of the others, but with the specific quality of something held together by force, that is grateful, finally, to stop being held. It dissolves. The soul fragment that was Tom Riddle dissipates, not destroyed exactly, but unmade, returned to the state before fracture, which is not a state a fractured soul can survive. Nagini herself, 107 years of living, of memory, of being simply alive before she was a weapon, rests in the grass for a long moment. Then, she is gone. Harry stands in the field with his left hand open and the grass very still around him, and Hermione puts her hand on his shoulder, and he closes his hand slowly. She's free, he says. Yes, Hermione says. From the Riddle house, the scream arrives 11 seconds later. It is the sound of a man who has built his entire existence on the premise that he is protected, that the barriers between himself and death are sufficient, are real, are permanent, and has just felt the last of them come apart. The sound of Tom Riddle understanding, for the first time since he was 16 years old in a school library, reading about the most forbidden magic he could find, that he is mortal. Harry listens to it. He stands in the field and listens to it. Then, he looks at Hermione. He knows. Yes, he'll come here. He has nowhere else to go. She pauses. The Aurors? 2 minutes out. He can feel them through the bond's extended reach. Bones' people, positioned since nightfall, waiting for exactly this signal. Dumbledore is with the Eastern group. Then we have 2 minutes. They move toward the Riddle house, not running, not with urgency, but with the deliberate pace of people who know exactly where they are going and what they will find there. Voldemort comes out of the Riddle House at midnight. He comes out into the field where Harry and Hermione are waiting, and stops. The Order is behind them, the perimeter Bones has rehearsed twice, and the field is full of witches and wizards and the specific quality of attention that comes from people who have prepared for something and are now watching it arrive. He looks at Harry. His face does something Harry has been thinking about for 6 years, reading about in the Ars Mortis, in the books Hermione found on soul compromise and its visible effects, and preparing to see. The face of someone who has traded so much of themselves for power that the power is the only thing left, and the power is gone, and what remains is just Tom Riddle, 17 years old in a library, terrified. "You destroyed them all," Voldemort says. His voice is exactly as Harry's scar has always carried it, cold, precise, stripped of everything that inflects human speech. But there is something underneath the cold and the precision that has not been there before. Something raw. "Yes," Harry says. "You are a child. You cannot have—" "I didn't do it alone," Harry says. "I never did anything alone. That's the difference between us." He pauses. It's always been the difference. The Elder Wand is in Voldemort's hand. Harry has known about the Elder Wand since 3rd year, known since 4th year that its allegiance shifted in the moment when Hermione cast Expelliarmus on Draco Malfoy in a hallway outside the Slytherin common room, a spell she had been refining since 2nd year. The wand knows her, and through her, through the soul resonance bond that has been fully active since they were 7 years old, it knows him. Voldemort raises it. The curse he casts is the one he has cast before, the last resort, the first and final argument of a man who has never learned another one. Harry does not raise his wand. He raises his left hand, palm forward. The receiving posture, the gesture of something that is not afraid and is not aggressive and is simply, completely present. He speaks the phoenix working. Hermione speaks it with him. They have been building toward this for 6 years, the dual working that requires soul resonance at its highest activation, the complete absence of internal resistance between intent and execution, 2 people who are, when they work together, a single magical entity with perfect efficiency and amplified output. This is the working that Hermione found in the Ars Mortis in 4th year and spent 2 years verifying was not merely theoretical, that had been used in documented cases by practitioners working in true concert. 2 minds that had spent enough time together that the gap between knowing and doing had become, functionally, nothing. She had told Harry when she confirmed it, it only works if both people mean it completely, with no reservation, in the same moment. He had thought about that for approximately 2 seconds. "That's not a problem for us," he had said. She had looked at him for a moment. "No," she had agreed. "It isn't. The Phoenix working is not a combat spell. It is not a counter-curse. It is the conversion of ambient magic into its harmonic positive. The specific frequency of integrated soul integrity, which is lethal to exactly one category of magical entity, the soul whose own integrity has been compromised beyond the threshold of self-recognition. Tom Riddle fractured himself 7 times. There is nothing left in him that knows how to receive what the Phoenix working sends. The light is not a color. Harry will tell Dumbledore this afterward, and Dumbledore will write it in his private journal and return to it many times. The Phoenix working does not have a color. It has a quality. It is the quality of something being met exactly where it is, and offered, without force, the thing it has been refusing for 70 years. Tom Riddle's curse goes out. The Phoenix working goes out. They meet in the air between Harry and the man who has been trying to kill him since he was 15 months old. There is no explosion. There is no collision of light. What there is a sound, very low, very brief, like a long-held breath finally released, and then the field is still. Voldemort is gone. Not fallen. Not collapsed. Gone, the way the soul fragments went when Hermione unmade them, the way Nagini went when she chose, returned to the state before fracture, which is the only state a fractured soul can finally reach. Harry stands in the field. His hand is at his side. The ambient magic of Little Hangleton is very still around him. Hermione is beside him. She has been beside him. He turns and looks at her, and she looks at him, And what passes between them is not a word and is not a look exactly. It is the bond, at its full activation, two people who are also a single thing, understanding simultaneously that the thing they have been preparing for their entire lives has just ended and the world has not ended with it. Which is the point. Don't let it make you merciful yet, she says. Her voice is very quiet. Let it make you exact. I know, he says. Behind them, Amelia Bones is organizing the perimeter. Dumbledore is crossing the field from the eastern tree line, walking with the specific pace of a man who is very old and has just watched something he did not entirely believe was possible happen exactly as planned. His face, when he reaches them, is carrying more than it usually shows. He looks at Harry for a long moment. Then at Hermione. Then at the field where Voldemort stood. That's not what I am, Harry had said, when Hermione asked him how he wanted to frame the public narrative. The boy who lived. The chosen one. The weapon. None of those. That's not what I am. Then what? She had asked. He had thought about it for a moment. Someone who was raised well, he said. That's all. Dumbledore reaches them. He puts one hand on Harry's shoulder and one hand on Hermione's, and he says nothing for a long time, and the field is still, and somewhere behind the overcast the first light of June morning is beginning to arrive. Fawkes appears overhead, not from anywhere, the way phoenixes don't come from anywhere, simply suddenly present, and sings 4 notes into the little Hangleton dawn. Harry looks up at him. Let's go home, he says. The morning after Little Hangleton is a Tuesday. This detail matters to Harry in the way that ordinary details have always mattered to him, not symbolically, not as metaphor, but as evidence that the world has continued. It is a Tuesday, the sky is overcast, breakfast is porridge and toast, and the specific smell of the great hall in early autumn, which is wood smoke and old stone, and something that has always been simply itself, unnameable, entirely Hogwarts. He eats his breakfast. This is harder than it sounds. Not because of grief. Grief is present, will be present for a long time, has already taken its proper shape in the space behind his sternum, where he keeps things that deserve to be kept carefully. It is hard because the body does not know that something enormous has ended. The body is 17 years old and hungry, and the porridge is warm. And the mind is having a conversation with itself about what comes next, while the hands hold a spoon, and the whole arrangement is strange in the way of mornings after things that change the shape of the world. Hermione is across from him, eating toast and reading a letter from Amelia Bones's office, outlining the immediate procedural requirements following the events of last night. 4 pages. Hermione has already annotated it in 2 colors. There will be a formal inquiry, she says. Bones wants our witness statements by Friday. We'll have them by Wednesday, Harry says. Wednesday makes us look like we're trying too hard. He looks at her. She looks at him over the letter. Something passes between them. Not the bond exactly, not the full resonance of the working they did last night, but its quieter daily form, the constant low-frequency understanding that has been the organizing fact of his life since he was 7 years old. Thursday, he says. Thursday, she agrees. The controlled press briefing happens in July, organized by Hermione, conducted by Dumbledore, attended by 6 journalists selected for their demonstrated willingness to report facts in the order the facts occurred. The briefing document is 38 pages. It covers the Goblet interference, Crouch Jr.'s identity and history, the existence of a surviving Voldemort consciousness, the known Horcrux structure, and the reason none of this was made public until now. Public knowledge of an incomplete threat is less useful than private knowledge of a complete picture. The final page is a single paragraph. Lord Voldemort has not returned. His capacity to return has been systematically reduced. The work is not finished. It will be finished. These are the facts as they currently stand, and we will continue to provide accurate information as the situation develops. We ask nothing of the public except continued trust in the process of careful, documented, evidence-based action. Cornelius Fudge does not attend the briefing. He receives the 38 pages by owl and reads them in his office, and then calls 3 people, none of whom are able to help him, and then sits for a long time with the specific expression of a man who has been running a strategy predicated on a truth that no longer exists. The strategy was, Harry Potter is a disturbed child making dangerous claims about a dead dark wizard, and the claims should be managed, not examined. The truth that no longer exists is, the claims have not been examined. They have been examined, in the kind of detail that produces a 38-page document that has been read by 6 journalists, and that is accurate, and accuracy has a quality that management cannot fully address. It simply proceeds. Dumbledore arrives at the Gryffindor table at 8:15, which he does not normally do. He sits down across from them with a cup of tea and does not say anything for a moment, just sits there with the specific quality of a man who has been awake all night and is tired in the deeper sense, the one that sleep does not fix. The Ministry, he says eventually, is in the process of deciding what happened last night. What are they deciding? Harry says. Whether it is a victory they can claim credit for, or a crisis they must manage. I expect they will settle on a version that involves the Ministry's strategic leadership and the cooperation of 2 talented students. They can have that version, Hermione says, without looking up, as long as the accurate version is in the formal record. It will be. Amelia is writing the accurate version. She has been since midnight. He is quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about what comes next. So have I, Hermione says. She sets down the letter. She opens her notebook. 3 things, in order of urgency. He waits. First, the Horcrux research. Everything we learned, every technique we developed, it needs to be formally archived and placed under the highest available restriction. The knowledge that Horcruxes can be found and destroyed is useful. The specific methodology is not something that should be available to the next person who thinks fragmentation is a reasonable solution to mortality. Agreed, Dumbledore says. Second, the Ministry's judicial review. The Sirius Black case is not singular. We established that. The press statement said it. There are other files. People in Azkaban without adequate trial records, processed in the same grief and fury, with the same assumption of guilt that was never examined. That process needs to happen with the same rigor we applied to Sirius's file, and it needs a permanent institutional mechanism to prevent it from happening again. That will take years, Dumbledore says. Yes, she says. Good things do. And third, she closes the notebook. She looks at him, this man who has been her teacher and her guardian and the architect of the life she has lived, who is looking at her now with the particular attention of someone who understands he is about to hear the thing that matters most. The Academy, she says. They present it to him fully the following week. Not a proposal, a plan. Built in the spaces around the Horcrux hunting and the Ministry work, and the Defense Association, and 6 years of everything else. The Phoenix Academy of Magical Arts. Not a replacement for Hogwarts. Not a competitor. What Hogwarts cannot be, not because Hogwarts is insufficient, but because Hogwarts is a school, and what they are describing is something else. A research institution, a postgraduate program, a place for the study of old magic, the wandless traditions, the runic systems, the alchemical disciplines, the things the standard curriculum reaches toward and cannot fully grasp because it has 7 years and 1,000 students and cannot move at the pace that genuine mastery requires. The academy would take 20 students a year. Not the most talented. Talent is not the criterion. The most committed. The ones for whom magic is not a tool but a relationship, not a subject but a life. It would be governed by its own charter, independent of the Ministry, operating under a variation of the Founder's Statute that Hermione has drafted and had reviewed by the Gringotts legal team and 3 international precedents. Located in the Scottish Highlands, on land the Hogwarts estate records show, has been part of the school's grounds for 800 years. The castle, when Harry asked it, confirmed the land was available. This is not a thing that can go in the formal proposal. He puts it in anyway, in a footnote, and Hermione reads the footnote and adds a citation to the Hogwarts estate records, and does not comment on the rest. You've thought about who will run it, Dumbledore says. We will, Harry says. Both of us. Together, that's how it's always worked. Dumbledore looks at him for a long time. Then at Hermione. "You're 17, he says. "You were younger than this when you started making the decisions that built the world we're living in," Harry says. "It is not an accusation. It is a fact delivered at the same weight as any other fact, with the same level tone that Minerva taught him. We're not starting tomorrow. We're starting in 5 years, after our full education, after the ministry review is underway, after the groundwork is laid. We're starting it correctly." He pauses. "We're asking for your help to start it correctly." Dumbledore is quiet for what is, by Harry's count, the longest silence he has produced in 17 years of knowing him. Then, he says, "Yes." Minerva is told that evening. She reads the plan for 45 minutes. Then she sets it down and says, "The governance structure in Article 3 needs revision. The ministry cannot have any voice in faculty appointments, even advisory. That's a gap." "I know," Hermione says. "I left it deliberately. I wanted to see if you'd find it." Minerva looks at her. "You left a deliberate error in a governance document to test whether I would find it." "Yes. How long did you expect that to take me?" 30 minutes. It took 45. "You were reading more carefully than I estimated." Minerva looks at her for a long moment with the expression she has worn, in various forms, since a 2-year-old girl arrived at Hogwarts with a stuffed rabbit and opinions about everything she saw. It is an expression that has never fully resolved into any single emotion, because what it is carrying is too large and too various for resolution. "Fix Article 3, she says. "It's already fixed," Hermione says. She produces a revised page from her notebook. "This is the corrected version." Minerva takes the page. She reads it. She sets it on the desk beside the plan. "Very good," she says. 5 years pass. The Ministry Judicial Review takes 3 years and finds 42 cases requiring re-examination. Of those, 19 result in acquittals. 6 of those 19 are people still living in Azkaban, released on a Thursday morning in November. Harry is there when they come out, not because his presence is necessary, but because he decided in the first year of the review that he would be present at every release, and would meet every person, and would look them in the face and say something true. "I'm sorry it took this long. It won't take this long again. We're changing the mechanism." Most of them say nothing. Some say thank you, which Harry receives without deflecting, and without making more of it than it is. Sirius comes with him to the 6th release. He stands beside Harry in the November morning outside the gates and does not say anything, but his hand is on Harry's shoulder, and Harry understands that the hand is Sirius saying, "I know. I know what this costs, and I know what it's worth, and I know why you're here." Minerva attends the formal Board of Governors resolution in the 4th year of the review, the one that establishes a permanent judicial review office within the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, with independent oversight and mandatory evidence thresholds. She sits in the public gallery and watches it pass. She does not applaud. She straightens her robes, which are the precise shade of tartan she always wears when she is experiencing something she considers important. Then she goes back to Hogwarts and teaches her afternoon classes, because the work of the day does not stop for the work of the larger project. It never has. It never will. The Phoenix Academy opens on a September morning 5 years after Little Hangleton, on land that is 800 years old, and knew what it was waiting for before the people building on it did. The building is stone, not Hogwarts stone, not the same age or the same history, but stone that has been asked to hold something, and has agreed. The 20 students who arrive on the first morning are from 6 countries and 4 magical traditions, ranging in age from 18 to 43, sharing the specific quality of commitment that Hermione called the only criterion, and Harry recognized immediately as right. Harry meets them on the steps. This is not a school. A school teaches you what is known. This is a place for what isn't known yet. Your job here is not to learn. It is to find. You will be supported in that finding. You will be challenged in it. You will be, when necessary, told that you are wrong, by people who have been wrong in the same way and know where it leads. What you will not be is directed. The work is yours. The methodology is yours. The answers are whatever the honest investigation produces. He pauses. Welcome to the Academy. Let's begin. The evening of the Academy's first day, Dumbledore and Minerva sit in the headmaster's tower at Hogwarts and watch from the high window as two figures cross the grounds below. Not students, not staff, just two people walking in the September evening, side by side, talking. They are too far away to hear, but the posture is legible even at this distance. The particular posture of two people who are entirely comfortable with each other, who have been entirely comfortable with each other for so long that comfort is not quite the right word. The right word is something more structural, more foundational, less an emotion than a fact about the architecture of their lives. Well, Dumbledore says. Well, Minerva says. They watch in silence for a long moment. Around them Hogwarts breathes in the particular way it breathes at the end of a September day, settling into itself, finding its evening rhythm, all four houses moving through its corridors with the cheerful, complicated noise of people beginning a new year. It is a sound Minerva has heard for 40 years. She is not, tonight, fully attending to it. Then Dumbledore says, in the tone of a man arriving at the end of a very long calculation, I've been thinking about what I would say if someone asked me what we did, what the sum of it was. And, Minerva says, I kept thinking about the plan, the strategy, whether the steps were right. He is quiet for a moment. But that's not what I would say, if someone asked. What would you say? We got the person right, he says. Both of them. We raised two people who know what they are and love what they do and trust each other completely. He pauses. That is, I think that is the best thing either of us will ever have done. Minerva is quiet. She has her own answer to the question, if she were asked. And it is not so different from his, only more precise. I refuse to leave a doorstep. Everything after that followed from the refusing. 35 years of teaching have shown her that most things work this way. The first choice is the one that matters, and all the subsequent choices are the first choice unfolding. And if the first choice is the right one, the unfolding tends to be right as well. She does not say this aloud. She does not need to. They have known each other for 40 years. Outside, the two figures have reached the school's entrance. Just before they go in, they stop, and one of them looks up toward the window where the two old teachers are watching, and waves. Insufferable, says Minerva. She is smiling. She has been smiling since the day this started, underneath everything, this specific particular smile that she keeps for things that are so good, she barely trusts them. Yes, Dumbledore agrees. Absolutely, Fawkes sings 3 notes. The castle hums around them. The stars come out over Hogwarts, as they have for 1,000 years, and the school, this ancient, living, impossible school, settles into the night with the specific satisfaction of something that has done exactly what it was built to do. It gave them a home. They made it mean something. The Phoenix era does not begin with a declaration. It begins the way all real eras begin. Not at the moment someone names them, but earlier, in the ordinary work of ordinary days, in 2 children on a library floor with a book about dragons, in a woman who refused to leave a doorstep, in an old man who looked at a sleeping face and made a different choice. It begins in the choosing. It ends, if it ends, somewhere beyond the last page, in a future that the oldest magic in the oldest school in Britain spent 1,000 years preparing for, and that 2 people spent their lives building, one careful, documented, evidence-based, step at a time, not chosen by prophecy. Choosing, let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.